I've heard a lot of stories from my grandfather. He was a detective for 27 years of his life, and I grew up listening to the tales of him and his fellow lawmen. When I was a kid, those stories felt like bedtime adventures, tamed, sanitized. He obviously amended them, cut out the blood, blunted the horror. I didn't realize how much he'd been hiding until I got older. One story in particular, he told it 3 times when I was little. Each time, it changed slightly, and each time, he looked a little more haunted. I didn't understand then, but now I think I know why. What I'm about to tell you is that story, the way I believe it really happened, or close enough. My grandfather worked in law enforcement, but for a time in his mid-40s, he took a sabbatical and went north, to the woods. He needed a break, said he wanted to do something with his hands again. So he joined a logging crew. Not a glamorous job. Long hours, dangerous tools, and remote terrain. His partner on most of those jobs was a man named Griffin. Big guy, quiet, reliable. They operated tree saws, those massive machines that can level a tree in seconds and slice it into perfect lengths. They worked ahead of the main crews, cutting and clearing before the loaders came in. And one season, they got assigned to a job high in the Cascades, remote even by logging standards. It took the company 3 weeks just to blast a road in far enough for trucks and trailers to reach the site. By the time Grandpa and Griffin got there, they were completely isolated. No phone service, no radio tower. Just a static-choked 2-way radio they used to call in check-ins. It was quiet, peaceful even, until the voices started. At first, it was nothing, just flickers of sound, crackles, whispers between the static. But then they started hearing them even when they weren't using the radios. Not through the headset, but from the open channel itself. Muffled words, too fast to catch, like 2 people having a conversation on the other side of a wall. Griffin thought the frequency was bleeding, said maybe someone nearby was using the same band. But they were 10 miles from the nearest ranger station. No one else should have been out there. Still, they switched channels. Didn't help. The voices followed. On the 10th day, Griffin found something just off the trail. He called my grandfather over, voice tight, no small talk. "You need to see this," he said. There was a tent, hidden under a ridge, camouflaged under tarps, pine boughs, and branches, too carefully hidden to be casual. They stepped inside. What they found wasn't a hiker's camp, wasn't even a squatter's den. It was wrong. 1 sleeping bag, 1 duffel bag. Inside were clothes. Tiny clothes, underwear, shirts sized for 6-year-olds, duct tape, rope, half-used candles, and drawings, childlike sketches. But they weren't drawn by a child. Figures, tied up, bleeding, some with hands missing, others with eyes scratched out. And at the very bottom of the bag, a fresh apple, still unbitten. Griffin wanted to leave immediately. "We're not staying here," he said. "I'm not dying on this mountain." But my grandfather, he was stubborn, said they'd just report it to the foreman, let the company handle it. They argued, but eventually agreed. They'd finish their job, limit radio use to emergencies only, and keep their heads down. That night, the voices came back, louder, clearer, 2 men, talking. One said something about collecting more water. The other mentioned a new fire. Mundane words, but chilling, because the radio was off, completely, and the voices were still there. The next night, my grandfather did something reckless. When the voices started again, this time louder, more deliberate, he grabbed the radio, held down the mic, and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" Silence. Not even static. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. Griffin slammed his fist on the table. "You just told them exactly where we are." My grandfather stared out the camper window. Didn't say a word. Around midnight, they heard footsteps. Not soft ones, not animal, heavy, human. The gravel crunched outside. Then, the camper door handle jiggled. Not yanked, not forced, just tested. No knock, no voice. Just the sound of someone gently, methodically trying to open the door. The camper was high off the ground. No ladder, no steps. They hadn't even set out a cinder block. No one should have been able to reach that handle. Then the scratching started. Deliberate, slow, metal on metal, like a coin dragged across a locker, or nails across a chalkboard, over and over, back and forth, right near the latch. It lasted for 4 full minutes. Then silence. They sat there in the dark, rifles across their laps, barely breathing. Eventually, my grandfather stood. He nodded to Griffin. "I'll check it." He picked up the flashlight, stepped forward, and opened the door. That's when the knife slashed across his face. He fell back screaming, blood pouring down his cheek. A man was already on top of him, pressing the knife to his throat. Another figure stepped up behind, taller, broader. Griffin didn't hesitate. He leapt from the camper bed and tackled the attacker, knocking him off my grandfather. The second figure lunged, but Griffin turned fast and kicked. The 2 men scrambled back, vanishing into the dark like they'd never been there. They didn't sleep that night. They just sat with their backs against the door, rifles aimed at the window, waiting. My grandfather's eye was swelling shut. His face was a mess of torn flesh. Griffin drove them off the mountain as soon as the sun came up. 2 hours of winding roads and silence. At the hospital, they stitched up the wound. Grandpa lost half the vision in his right eye. The scar stayed with him for the rest of his life. They called the sheriff, filed a report, described the tent, the contents, the attack. But nothing came of it. No arrests, no follow-ups, not even a callback. 2 weeks later, as the rest of the crew came in to finish the job, one of the men was found in a ditch, bound, gagged, murdered. The camp was only half a mile from where Griffin and my grandfather had found the tent. There were no suspects, no signs of struggle, no tracks. After that, Grandpa never went back to logging. Griffin left the state. They never spoke again. I didn't hear the story the real way until I was much older. I think he waited until he knew I'd understand the weight of it. That it wasn't just a bad memory or some cautionary tale. It was trauma, burned deep, right into the fabric of him. I asked him once, years later, if he thought those men were part of some cult. He just shook his head and said, they weren't worshiping anything. They were just hiding. From what? I asked. He didn't answer. He just looked out the window, like maybe he was still listening for that scratch on the door. He passed a few years back. At the funeral, they let me hold his badge. It still had blood on the back clasp, rust-colored, old. No one ever found the men who attacked them. The official cause of death for the logger who was murdered? Wild animal attack. Right. Just like the ones who disappear near Cozart Road. Just like the voices in the static. I haven't gone into the woods since. I used to love hiking, even did a few solo treks in college. But now, no. Because I believe what my grandfather said. There are places we're not supposed to go, not because they're haunted, not because they're cursed, but because something is already there, waiting, watching, and hoping we'll forget what we saw. The story I'm about to share took place a long time ago, a decade ago, in fact. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why I'm choosing to speak about it now, after so many years of silence. Maybe it's because all the people who could have backed it up, they're gone. Not dead, just disappeared. Or maybe erased. And maybe, just maybe, I'm tired of pretending it never happened. So here it is. The one story I never told anyone completely, not even my wife. I was 17 at the time, senior year. That sweet spot in life where you think you're untouchable, invincible, immortal. God, we were stupid. It started with a road, not just any road, Cozart Road. Where I'm from, it was an urban legend. Every town has one. Ours was a long stretch of backcountry asphalt that twisted out past the power lines, past the farms, and deep into the woods where cell service didn't follow. Kids at school used to call it the Devil Road. They'd whisper stories in the locker room or outside the 7-Eleven. Tales about cars that went down Cozart and never came back. About screams in the trees, about lights you could see but never reach. And about the man in the ditch, always watching, always smiling. We never really believed it. I mean, come on. We were rational kids, right? One night, my buddy Lucas came up with a plan. We'd take his mom's car and drive the entire length of Cozart Road, top to bottom. It'd be me, Lucas, and Darren. We were bored, half drunk, and full of testosterone. And yeah, I wanted to impress the girl I liked. She wasn't coming, but word would get around if we did something brave. So we went. It was just after midnight. Clear sky, no wind. One of those rare southern nights that feels too still, too clean, like the earth's holding its breath. We hit the road fast, tires humming, windows down. Darren was in the back, tossing beer cans out the window. Lucas drove like he was in a movie. The first few miles were uneventful. Then we passed the first sign. A wooden cross stuck in the dirt by a telephone pole, fresh flowers beneath it. None of us said anything, but I think we all noticed. A mile later, another cross, then another. Lucas slowed down. "You ever notice how many of these there are?" he asked. Darren muttered, "Redneck cemetery, maybe." I laughed, but it felt forced. The road started curving harder. Trees leaned in like they were listening. We passed a gate, iron, closed, no sign. But Lucas didn't stop. We kept going. That's when we saw the car. It was on the side of the road, old, covered in dust. Lights off, windows fogged. Lucas slowed to a crawl. We all stared. Inside, nothing. No driver, no movement. Just 3 empty seats and a single pair of shoes in the passenger side floorboard, like someone vanished straight out of them. Lucas kept driving. None of us said a word for the next mile. Then the radio cut out. Static, followed by a voice. Not a DJ, not a song, a voice, speaking too fast, too distorted to understand. But it was definitely human. We looked at each other. Lucas turned the knob. The voice kept going. Then it stopped. Mid-sentence. I wish I could say we turned around, that we did the smart thing. But we were dumb. And 17. And we kept going. Up ahead, something crossed the road. Fast. Too fast. Lucas slammed the brakes. The car fishtailed, skidded to a stop. Nothing there. No animal, no person, just drag marks. Two long, uneven trails across the asphalt that vanished into the trees. That's when Darren lost it. "Turn the fuck around, man. Now." Lucas didn't argue. He threw it in reverse. And that's when the headlights went out. Just gone. The engine died too. Everything dead. We sat there in the dark, engine off, windows down, breathing hard. Something moved outside. We all heard it. Leaves crunching, slow, deliberate, coming closer. Darren started whispering, "Do you see that? Do you fucking see that?" I didn't want to look, but I did, and I saw him. He stood just at the edge of the tree line, half in shadow, half lit by moonlight, naked, hair matted, smiling, a smile too wide, too calm. His arms hung wrong, like something was broken inside him, and he just stood there, watching. Lucas turned the key. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Third time. The engine roared to life. Headlights flicked on. The man was gone. We tore out of there. Didn't stop until we hit the highway. Didn't speak until we were back in town. Next day, Lucas's mom asked where the hell we'd been. She said her car wouldn't start. Mechanics said the battery had been melted from the inside. We told no one. Darren moved to Colorado 2 months later. Lucas dropped out senior year. Me? I still drive past the start of Cozart sometimes. The road's still there. But now there's a chain and a sign. Private property, no trespassing. I think about that night often, more than I want to. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see that smile. Wide, knowing, waiting. What the hell just happened? I'm at home, still on the clock, covered in blood. And I just got a call. No. This isn't happening. This isn't real. Jesus Christ. I wish I were kidding. I really do. But I'm not. Dispatch wants me to head over to this lady's house. Says she's claiming something's crawling out of her toilet. I laughed. I actually laughed. Until I realized they were serious. "You're closest to the location," they said. "Standard welfare check." Right. Because that's what I am now. A walking badge with a pulse. I'm not okay. I haven't been for a long time. Ever since what happened with my kid, my little boy. God, don't make me say it again. I try to keep it together. Most days, some days, other days, I feel like there's something inside me, scratching. And today it's tearing. I drove over there because that's what you do. You get in the cruiser, you follow orders. You put one foot in front of the other, even if you left your soul somewhere back at mile marker 12. When I got there, the place looked normal. A little run down, peeling paint, overgrown grass. The front door was already open. Not wide, just cracked, like it was waiting for someone. Me, apparently. I called out, "Ma'am, this is Officer Rains. You called about a plumbing issue?" No answer, just this low sound, like something dripping or breathing through a pipe. I stepped inside. The house was cold. Not AC cold, basement cold, grave cold. The living room was empty. Kitchen too. But the bathroom door was shut. And from behind it, I could hear this wet sound. Slapping, dragging, something shifting in water. I put my hand on the knob. It was warm, sweating. Wood shouldn't sweat. Not like that. I opened the door, and there it was. Not a person, not even a thing I could name. Just this mass, dark, slick, tangled in the bowl of the toilet like a nest of wet roots. and from it, I saw something rise. Not fast, not sudden. It just unfolded. Long arms, no skin, teeth where teeth shouldn't be. And it looked at me. It didn't have eyes. But I swear to God, it looked at me. I didn't move. Couldn't. My body had locked itself down, like every part of me knew I was looking at something I wasn't supposed to see. That thing. It didn't blink. Didn't breathe. It just watched. Then it slid back down. Not into the pipes, not like water. It folded itself, bit by bit, into that toilet like it had been built for it. And when it was gone, the water went still, like nothing had happened. I closed the door slowly, walked out of that house like I was in a dream. Called it in like protocol says I should. Nothing suspicious found. Resident not home. No further action required. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe because if I told them what I actually saw, they'd send someone to collect me. Maybe because deep down, I know that if I say it out loud, it becomes more real. That night, I didn't go home. I drove around town until the sky turned black, until even the gas stations shut their lights. Eventually, I parked near the edge of the old canal, the same place I used to take my son fishing. He was 5 the last time we came here. Wore these little rubber boots 2 sizes too big. He asked me if fish ever got sad. I didn't know what to say. Now I wish I'd answered. I don't talk about what happened to him, not because I'm ashamed, but because I don't understand it myself. One day he was there, and then he wasn't, just gone. Toilet flushed, water overflowed, no trace. You think I'm kidding, that I'm broken, but I saw it. I saw the hand. That slick, gray hand slip up from the bowl and wrap around my boy's ankle. I heard him scream, and then it pulled. Fast, hard, gone. The plumber said it was a backup, said kids get scared and run. But I found his shoe inside the tank. And no one believed me, no one listened. Until today, until I saw it again. It wasn't just a hallucination. It wasn't grief. It wasn't trauma. That thing was real. And now, it's back. I started researching. Late nights, obscure forums, government-redacted documents, plumbing anomalies, disappearances, urban legends. And there it was, in thread after thread. Different names, same story, children, gone. Always from the bathroom, always with water. No witnesses, no bodies, just wet tile. Just the sound of pipes groaning in the walls like they're alive. I even found drawings. Kids had drawn them. Black crayons, long arms, toilets with mouths. It was all there, buried, ignored. I think it feeds, not just on bodies, on pain, on guilt. It chooses people already broken, already bent. People like me. I can't sleep anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the water turning. Not dripping, turning. Like something is churning in there, waiting to rise. Sometimes I hear whispers, not words, just the idea of them. Like language is too small for what it wants to say. I boarded up my bathroom, ripped out the pipes, smashed the sink, poured concrete down the drain. Didn't help. Now it knocks from inside the walls. Soft taps, then harder. Then it laughs. 2 days ago, I found wet footprints on the hallway floor. They weren't mine. They were too small. I'm writing this now because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to keep myself together. If you're reading this, God help you. If you hear it calling, if you ever hear your child's voice coming from the wrong place, don't answer. Don't open the door. And for the love of God, don't look into the bowl. My name is Joseph Cooper. I was a police officer in the town of Jimsville, Tennessee. If you're curious why the town doesn't show up in any Google search results, I'm going to tell you why. It was an ordinary day at the station. I was doing the usual, organizing old case files, drinking terrible coffee, half listening to the dispatch chatter when it came in. Possible attempted abduction, Carter Elementary School. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my badge, got in the cruiser, and hit the lights. The school was just 10 minutes away. When I arrived, the principal was already outside, visibly shaken. She waved me toward the back fence where the playground sat. He was just standing there, she said, breath shaky, right on the edge of the woods, watching the kids. I looked out. Nothing now but empty tree line and afternoon haze. Did he say anything? I asked. She shook her head. No, he didn't move. Just stood there. Something was off about him. I walked out toward the spot she'd pointed at. The grass was trampled. And about 20 feet in, footprints. But not normal ones. They were bare. Narrow heel, long toes, spaced strangely, like someone who hadn't worn shoes in years. They led deeper into the woods, and then vanished. The next morning, I was called to a missing child report. 9-year-old girl, Megan Carter. Same school. She never came home from school that day. We launched a full-scale search. Volunteers, dogs, helicopter from the next county over. Not a single trace. No clothes, no backpack, nothing. Her mother was inconsolable. Her father never said a word. He just stared at the tree line like it had stolen his soul. A week later, a 17-year-old girl vanished from behind a diner. Security footage caught her stepping outside for a phone call. Then, static. 13 minutes of white snow. Then, nothing. She never came back inside. When we reviewed the footage, I swear I heard something under the static. Not a voice exactly. More like a pattern, a rhythm, like breathing or whispering in another room. We found Megan Carter's body 6 weeks later, or what was left of it, floating in Cold Creek Pond, wrapped in thick plastic, missing her face. Not cut, gone. No signs of knife work, no evidence of decay, just nothing there. 2 days after that, the teenager was found dumped in a drainage tunnel. She was naked, and her body had been opened, surgically, not just cut, clean, precise. Heart removed, stomach gone, intestines coiled neatly beside her like someone was displaying them. We tried to blame it on animals, a bear, maybe even a rogue mountain lion. But none of us believed it. This was human, worse than human, and we had no idea who or what we were dealing with. After the second body was found, the town changed. No more late-night drives, no more unlocked doors. People started boarding up windows. Kids stopped playing in the streets. The diner cut its hours back. It was like Jimsville was slowly curling in on itself, shrinking. Even the air felt heavier. And then it got personal. One night, my daughter Ellie came running into our bedroom crying. She said there was a man outside her window. He was looking at me, Daddy. He had no mouth. My wife held her close while I grabbed my pistol and flashlight. I went out into the yard, scanning the shadows. Nothing. No prints in the dirt, no movement. Just the woods. Watching. Over the next few days, the calls started pouring in. People were hearing things. Footsteps on rooftops. Children's laughter behind fences. Scratching beneath their beds. One woman swore she saw someone crouching in her barn for 6 hours, never moving. When she blinked, he was gone. Then Deputy Paul went missing. He'd been on patrol near Miller's Hollow, standard route. He never came back. We found his cruiser on the edge of the tree line, engine running, lights on. His belt was still in the front seat. His gun, missing. But his badge was embedded in the dashboard, pressed in like someone had taken hours to drive it into the plastic. There was blood on the door frame. Not much, just enough to say, he bled here. That was the breaking point. I went to the sheriff and said, "We need to go in, tonight, armed." He didn't argue. 3 of us went. Me, the sheriff, and Deputy Miller. We took rifles, flashlights, and flare guns, and headed into the woods behind the Carter property. We didn't speak for the first hour. The trees swallowed our light. The air was too quiet. Then we found something. A clearing. And in it, a pit. About 6 feet wide, 4 feet deep, freshly dug, and full of bones. Not just animal bones, small ones, children's. That's when we heard it. Not footsteps, not breathing, whispers. Dozens of them, all around us. We spun around, rifles raised. No one, nothing. But it felt thick, like the woods were breathing with us or against us. Then Miller screamed. I turned just in time to see a shape grab him and pull him backward into the brush. We chased after him, stumbling, branches slapping our faces. There was no trail, no footprints, just broken twigs and blood on leaves. And silence. We called his name, nothing. Eventually we found his radio. Still warm, still hissing, like someone had just let go of the button. The sheriff wanted to keep searching. I didn't. I'd seen enough. I told him we had to go. And when we turned around, we realized we didn't know where we were. No path, no markers. The GPS was blank. Dead screen. No satellites. No coordinates. Just searching. It took us 4 hours to find our way back to the cruisers. By then, it was almost sunrise. My wife was waiting at home with Ellie clutched in her arms. I hugged them both like I hadn't seen them in years. And maybe, in a way, I hadn't. A few days later, I got a call from Theo. He wasn't a cop, but he was an old friend, an experienced hunter, knew the woods better than anyone. I told him what was happening, the disappearances, the whispers, the pit of bones. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "When do we go in?" Theo showed up that afternoon with his AR-10, thermal scope, and a grim look. We geared up. Extra mags, flare, canteens. No radios this time, just eyes and instincts. We went in through the north end of the woods, deep, uncharted. Every 20 steps or so, Theo would check the scope. At first, nothing. Then we saw them. Footprints. Same as before. Bare, long, inhuman. They twisted in odd patterns. Some doubled back. Some led into nothing. We followed them for hours. Sometimes they'd split, like someone trying to confuse us. We marked trees to keep from getting turned around. But it didn't help. As night fell, the forest changed. The temperature dropped. The air got heavier. Even the scope started to glitch. At one point, Theo stopped dead in his tracks. He held up a hand, then whispered, "Look." I took the scope and aimed where he pointed. What I saw nearly made me drop it. 4 figures, huddled in the snow, 2 large, 2 small. The small ones were eating, clinging to a tree like animals, tearing at something with their mouths. The large ones stood watch, unmoving. I couldn't make out faces, but I could see skin, pale, bare, filthy. One of them turned suddenly, as if it hurt us. Theo yanked the scope back, and we both dropped to the ground. We didn't move, not for minutes. Eventually, we heard them moving again, deeper into the trees. When we got back to town, it was past midnight. My wife was still awake. She took one look at my face and started crying. I told her only what she needed to know. We called the county sheriff. They sent a team to sweep the woods the next morning. But a storm had rolled in during the night. All the tracks were gone. The official report listed Paul and Miller as missing in action. The Carter girl and the others were listed as animal attacks. Case closed. No charges, no arrests, no suspects, just paper trails leading into the dark. A few weeks later, Theo moved. Didn't leave an address. I haven't heard from him since. I still live in Tennessee, a few counties over. New name, new job. But some nights, when the air is still and the woods are quiet, I swear I can hear them. That dragging step, that low breath, that laughter. And sometimes I wake up at 3:13 a.m. on the dot, every time, like clockwork. And when I do, I don't look out the window, not anymore. You might be thinking the movies make it look easy. You know the type. Shadowy figure steps out of the fog, loads a silver bullet. One clean shot to the skull, and boom. The monster's down. Credits roll. Everybody sleeps peacefully. That's not how it works. Not even close. I've been hunting cryptids. Yes, real ones. For over a decade now. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that nothing dies clean. Silver's just a metal. Bullets don't mean a damn thing if you're pointing them at the wrong thing. I've emptied entire mags into creatures that weren't even inconvenienced. I've seen things you couldn't sketch from your worst dreams. And tonight, I'm going to tell you about one of the worst. They called her Stager Anna. But we called her something else. We called her the Anna Thing. The job came through a private channel. Encrypted drop, no ID. But the money was real. Heavy. Enough to keep a man quiet for years. Normally, I don't take jobs that don't come with context. But this one, something about it smelled wrong. Like it wasn't just about the target. Like someone wanted to see what would happen if we got close. I took it anyway. That was my first mistake. The location was a small, dead-end town in the Rockies. Population under 200. No post office, no cell towers. Not on most maps. Locals whispered about Anna. Some said she was a ghost. Others said she was a girl who'd wandered into the mines decades ago and never came out the same. But the truth, she was real. First time I saw her, I didn't even know what I was looking at. It was 2 a.m. fog everywhere. We'd just finished setting up trail cams near the edge of the town. Then we saw movement, something fast, low to the ground. But the shape, it shifted. 1 second, it looked human. The next, wrong. Arms too long. Neck bent like a broken coat hanger. And the face, it didn't have one. Just folds. Like skin hadn't figured out where to stop. I froze. Not out of fear. I've seen plenty of things that want to eat you. But because it looked like a kid, that's the part that gets you. It tricks the instincts. You see something bent and twitching and faceless. But it's child-sized. Your brain hesitates. And hesitation in this line of work, it's a death sentence. It disappeared into the tree line before I could unholster my sidearm. No sound, no footprints, just silence. We found one of the trail cams an hour later. Smashed. The memory card was intact, but what it captured? God. Frame by frame, it came out of the woods, walked up to the lens, and just stood there for 7 straight minutes, doing nothing, no breathing, no blinking, just standing. Then, frame skip. The lens goes black. You hear metals shriek, then static. That night, we camped with a perimeter of salt and ash. I didn't sleep. Neither did Jones. He was my partner on that hunt. Retired ranger, good man. Used to teach tracking to the military. At 4:22 a.m., he nudged me. "Something's at the edge," he whispered. I raised my rifle, activated the night scope, and saw nothing. But the motion detector was going nuts. Jones drew his blade. "If it comes inside the circle, we run." But it didn't. Not that night. Next day, we questioned the townsfolk. Most wouldn't talk. A few crossed themselves. Some locked their doors as we walked by. Only one guy opened up. Name was Micah. Used to be a miner. He said the old shafts went deeper than anyone realized. Cut into something they shouldn't have. Said they found bones, big ones, wrong ones. And after that, they started hearing footsteps from tunnels that had been sealed for 50 years. Then came the disappearances. First the animals, then children. The sheriff tried to investigate. Then he vanished. And the mayor stopped asking questions. Micah handed me an old photo. Weather-worn, edges curling, a class picture. At the end of the back row stood a girl. Hair over her face, arms stiff at her sides. But the odd thing, everyone else had names written underneath, except her. Just a smudge. That night, the screaming started. Not ours. Hers. It started around 3 a.m. low at first, like wind through a broken window. But then it rose. Sharp, ragged. A sound that didn't belong in this world. Not a voice, not quite. It was like something trying to remember how to scream and almost getting it right. Jones and I jumped up, weapons drawn. Motion sensors lit up in all directions. Then, the salt line split. Something stepped inside. We didn't wait. We ran. Straight into the trees. No plan, no light, just pure panic. Behind us, we could hear it. Not footsteps, too smooth. It glided, like bone against moss, wet and clicking. Jones fired a flare. The woods lit up red, and there she was, standing between two trees, skin sagging like wet cloth. No mouth, but I could hear her voice, inside my skull. Return. That was all it said. Just that word. I fired, direct hit, square in the chest. She stumbled back, then did something I'll never forget. She smiled, without a face. I still don't know how. She vanished into the smoke. We didn't chase her. We made it back to the cabin and packed. By sunrise, we were already miles away. Never took the payment. Didn't care. Jones left the country. I haven't spoken to him since. Weeks later, I got a package. No sender, no return label. Inside was a photo. Same class picture Micah had shown me, but this time, her name had reappeared. Not Anna, not a name I recognized. Just 3 words, handwritten in shaky ink. Property of Division 6. That's the thing with these jobs. Sometimes, the monsters aren't monsters. They're experiments, accidents, or warnings. And the scariest ones are the ones who remember who they used to be. If you ever hear a child crying in the woods, don't go looking. It might be her. And she might still be waiting for someone who thinks this job is as easy as the movies. I was very young when this happened. I don't remember much, or rather, I don't want to. I think I suppressed most of the memories from those mines. What little comes back now, it comes in flashes. Broken images, smells, sounds that shouldn't exist. This isn't going to be a story full of exposition or explanations. I don't have answers. I don't even know who they were. But I remember what it felt like, and I know what they did. So I'm going to tell you everything I can before I change my mind. When I was 8, my parents died in a car accident. I went to live with my grandparents. They were kind people, strict, but gentle. They tried their best, but I was a wreck. Withdrawn, silent. I'd have nightmares. Wake up screaming, claiming someone was watching me through the vent. My grandmother thought I needed counseling, so I started seeing a therapist in town, Dr. Heller. He had a calm voice and soft eyes, the kind of man you trust instantly, even when you shouldn't. One day, after a session, I was supposed to wait in the lobby for my grandfather to pick me up, but he was late. Dr. Heller offered to wait with me. Then he suggested I come to the back room. He had toys, puzzles, something to help pass the time. That's the last thing I remember before waking up in the dark. The floor was concrete, the ceiling steel. There was no furniture, no window, just a narrow cot and a silver door with no handle on my side. I screamed until my throat was raw. No one answered. Time moved differently down there. It could have been hours, days. Eventually, a slot opened in the door and a tray of food was shoved through. That's when I knew it wasn't a mistake. Someone had put me there. On purpose. After what felt like days, the door finally opened. 2 men entered, faces covered in cloth. No names, no voices. They grabbed me, restrained me, and walked me down a long, sloping hallway. Everything echoed, like we were deep underground. And then, a chamber. Large, dimly lit, and filled with other kids, maybe 6, maybe 10, all sitting on the floor, back straight, eyes unfocused, like dolls that had been left too long in the attic. I tried to speak, tried to ask who they were, where we were. No one answered. We were given numbers. Mine was 14, that's what they called me. Not kid, not boy, just 14, stand. 14, eat. 14, return. Every wall was metal, every sound carried forever. We weren't allowed to talk. If you did, you disappeared. I mean that literally. 2 kids whispered one night. The next morning, their beds were empty. No explanation, no alarm. Just gone. We were made to do drills. Stand, sit, march. Recite long strings of numbers. Sometimes in English. Sometimes in other languages I didn't understand. The lights never turned off. There was no clock, no sense of day or night. Only the voice over the intercom. Monotone, steady, issuing commands we had to obey, and always watching, always waiting. After a while, we stopped trying to speak, stopped making eye contact, stopped dreaming. You learn down there. You learn to move like a ghost, to breathe as little as possible, to disappear into corners. Because if you don't, you get moved. None of us ever saw where moved was. But the ones who went never came back. Once, I caught a glimpse of another hallway. They were bringing a girl through, probably no older than me. Her number was stitched into her shirt. 22. She was gagged and crying, but not like a kid cries. It was deeper, more hollow, like she already knew how it ended. That was the first time I understood. This wasn't about ransom. It wasn't about revenge. It was something worse, something clinical. Sometimes we were taken to small rooms, one by one. We'd sit in chairs, electrodes on our temples, flashing lights, sounds we couldn't make sense of. Tones, clicks, voices slowed down to the point of distortion. It felt like my brain was being pulled apart. When I cried, they wrote things on a clipboard. When I screamed, they changed frequencies. No one ever asked how we felt. That wasn't the point. Food came at random times, always the same. Tasteless protein blocks, water in unmarked bottles. Once, I found a hair in my food. It was mine. There was one person I started to trust. A girl named Cassie. She was older, maybe 12. They put us in the same sleep block for a while. She never spoke, but she had this way of looking at you that made you feel like maybe you weren't completely gone yet. One night, she slipped me a crumpled piece of cloth. She'd hidden it in her sleeve. It had writing on it. Tiny letters, almost invisible. I still remember it. We are not alone, and they are afraid of the ones who remember. After that, Cassie disappeared, just like the others. But that message, that tiny whisper of resistance, it stayed with me, and I think that's what saved me. I started pretending I was empty, obedient, erased. But in my mind, I replayed every detail, every number, every hallway. I didn't know it then, but I was building a map. And then one day, everything changed. A loud sound, a siren. Not like a fire alarm, more like something had gone wrong. For the first time, the routines broke. Doors stayed open, lights flickered. I don't know if it was a breach or if something inside revolted. But I knew it was my only chance. I ran. I don't remember much about the escape. It's like my brain sealed it up. All I know is I kept running through tunnels. Sharp turns, metal doors, vents just big enough to squeeze through. Somewhere along the way, I got to the surface. I remember the sky. Gray, overcast, and the trees. They didn't look real. After all that time underground, they looked like cardboard cutouts in a dream. I collapsed on the roadside. Couldn't speak, could barely breathe. A driver spotted me, called 911. The authorities said they couldn't find the place I described. No tunnels, no entrances, nothing on satellite. I was labeled trauma-induced delusional, placed in psychiatric care for evaluation. My grandparents took me back in when I was released, but they never really looked at me the same again. I was quiet, distant, not the boy they remembered, maybe not a boy at all anymore. Years passed. I moved away, tried to live a normal life, got a job, got an apartment. But I never stopped watching, never stopped wondering. Every now and then, I'd find something online, someone describing a similar experience. Different place, different details, same silence, same gaps in memory, same numbers. I think it's still out there. That underground facility, that network of forgotten children. And I think they still monitor us, the ones who got out. I found things in my mailbox, no return address, just images, a hallway, a metal door, a number scrawled in red ink, 14, my number. I don't know if posting this will change anything. I doubt it. But I'm tired of pretending it didn't happen. I'm tired of waking up every night at 2:22 a.m. with the sound of that intercom in my head. 14, return. I was walking back from work at lunchtime. One of those rare, beautiful half days we all pray for. The kind where the sun is out, the breeze is soft, and for a moment, you forget how tired your bones are. Same route as always. I'd leave the office, cut through the industrial estate, then take a left at the park just before the grocery store. Past the flats, over the footbridge, and boom, home. It's a route I could walk blindfolded. Hundreds of times before, no surprises, no turns. Until that day, the main road out of the industrial estate was blocked. Police tape, crowd of people, some kind of collision. At first, I thought it was a fender bender, but then I saw the coroner's van. Okay, not going that way. I stood there for a minute trying to decide if I should turn back or wait for the tape to come down. Then I saw a side path, one of those narrow gravel cut-throughs that looks like it was designed for maintenance crews and forgotten by time. It curved sharply behind a row of chain-link fencing and disappeared into some tall trees. I'd never noticed it before. But I was in a good mood, and honestly, I thought it might be a nice shortcut. So I took it. That was my first mistake. At first, it was fine. Just gravel underfoot and tree branches arching overhead. Birds chirping, leaves rustling. Peaceful. Almost too quiet. After maybe 5 minutes, I noticed something strange. The air had changed. It smelled off. Not rotten, not sewage, but sterile, like bleach or hospitals. I tried to shake it off, kept walking. Then I passed a small wooden sign. It was nailed to a post, tilted like it had been there for decades. White letters on red paint. Restricted area. Do not enter. I laughed. Thought maybe it was old, maybe forgotten. But then I saw the fence. It was about 8 feet high. Barbed wire looped across the top. Metal panels instead of chain link. And just behind it, a heavy gate, locked tight with a rusted padlock the size of my fist. But here's the thing. The path didn't stop there. It curved right through a break in the fence, clean cut, like someone had sliced a perfect V into the metal and bent it back just wide enough to squeeze through. I stood there for maybe a full minute, just staring. I should have turned around, I know that, but there was something about that gap, something almost magnetic. So I stepped through. On the other side of the fence, the air got colder. Not dramatically, just enough to make my skin tighten, like stepping into a shadow that shouldn't be there. The trees here were different, taller, sicklier. Their bark was pale, almost gray, and some of them had long black scars down their trunks, as if they'd been struck by lightning over and over. The path beneath me narrowed, then vanished altogether. I kept walking. No map, no signs, just instinct and curiosity. That's when I started noticing the structures. Half-buried metal hatches, concrete blocks jutting out of the undergrowth. A collapsed guard post with a broken mirror still hanging from the wall. And the silence. No birds, no wind, no bugs, just my footsteps and the sound of my own breathing, getting faster. About 15 minutes in, I came to a clearing. Center of it, a large circular building, gray, featureless, windowless. It looked like a grain silo crossed with a fallout shelter. Around its base, rusted pipes sticking out of the ground like ribs. A hatch lay open. Steel stairs led downward. There was a symbol painted above it, half erased. It looked military, but distorted. A triangle, and an eye, and something like a spiral? I don't know what made me do it. But I stepped inside. The stairs echoed. Not like a regular stairwell. It felt like I was descending into something hollow, something that was never meant to echo human sound. After a minute or two, I reached the bottom. Bare hallway, fluorescent lights flickering overhead, dust on every surface. But the floor was spotless, like someone had cleaned it. Recently, walked past several rooms. Some were sealed, others wide open. One had rows of chairs, metal bolted to the floor, facing a blank white wall. Another was filled with broken monitors, all dark. But one room had lights on. soft yellow glow, like a reading lamp in a room that hadn't been entered in years. Inside was a table, a single chair, and a stack of photos. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. They were all of the same person, different angles, different clothes, different ages, but the same face, mine. I froze. There were at least a dozen photos, some recent, one from a party 2 weeks ago, others from years back. My old college ID, a photo of me in a hoodie I haven't owned since high school. How the hell did they get these? How long had they been watching me? That's when I heard the click. Not a door, not a switch, a camera. Somewhere in the ceiling, something adjusted, and then a voice, mechanical, crackling through an unseen speaker. Return to the surface immediately. No explanation, no threat, just instruction. I backed out of the room slowly, heart hammering, legs like stone. I didn't run. I don't know why. Maybe because I didn't want to see what would happen if I did. When I emerged from the hatch, the light had changed. The sun was lower, the shadows longer. I don't remember the walk back. I just remember coming through the broken fence and seeing normal life again. Cars, voices, sunlight. I stood there for a long time, trying to convince myself it had all been a hallucination. But then I checked my phone. I'd been gone 4 hours. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying the photos in my mind. One in particular kept coming back. It was me, standing outside my office building, looking down at my phone. That photo was taken that morning, before I took the detour, before I ever saw the path. I didn't tell anyone. I just shut down. For a few weeks, I thought I might be okay. Maybe it was a sick prank. Maybe it was government surveillance. Maybe I was losing it. Then my friend Josh disappeared. He left for work one morning and never came home. No sign of forced entry, no calls, no body. Gone. I checked our old group chat the next day. He had sent a single message at 2:41 a.m., a photo. A metal door, a triangle, and a spiral. I don't walk to work anymore. Hell, I barely go outside. Sometimes I hear a faint hum under the floorboards. Sometimes I dream of rooms I've never seen. Sometimes I wake up and find dirt under my fingernails. I keep telling myself it was just a path, a shortcut, a mistake. But I know the truth. It was a test. And I think I failed.